Blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies have long been slated as tools that can be used to create new sources of value. In the past, we've seen examples of this in financial trading, data collection, and application building. More recently, various forms of blockchain tech have been making a splash in cultural spheres. NFTs took the art world by storm earlier this year. Now, the conversation is shifting toward gaming. A growing number of blockchain researchers, analysts, and startup companies are working on developing video games that are equipped with the technological capabilities to support functioning secondary economies. In game currencies are being reinvented as blockchain tokens. Imagine that your wealth in a virtual world could translate into wealth in real life. Samson Mao is the chief executive of Pixelmatic, a social media game development company that is currently developing Infinite Fleet, a video game that will operate with INF, an in-game blockchain token. Pixelmatic is also holding a security token offering to fund the development of the game. Samson is also the chief strategy officer of blockchain technology provider Blockstream, which has contributed to the development of Bitcoin's Lightning Network. Blockstream is also responsible for the development of the Liquid Network. We spoke with Samson about the intersection of the work that Pixelmatic and Blockstream are doing to create functioning economies in virtual worlds. Samson also spoke in depth about Bitcoin's status as digital cash, the Lightning Network, and Coinbase's recent public offering. I'm Rachel McIntosh, and this is FMTV. First of all, Samson Mao, thanks again, and welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can you tell people who might not know about you a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Blockstream. It's a Bitcoin infrastructure company. We work on a lot of things around the Bitcoin protocol, sidechain development. We have Bitcoin satellites in space as well. And we do a lot of things basically to augment Bitcoin. I'm also the CEO of Pixelmatic. It's a game development company working on the Infinite Fleet MMO strategy title. And that is using some of Blockstream's tech to raise funds and to empower players.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So you kind of have your hand in all kinds of different things in the cryptocurrency world. And so I want to get to everything, but first of all, I want to talk a little bit more specifically about the work that you do at Pixelmatic. So can you just elaborate, a little bit more? There's been a lot of talk, lately about how cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is making virtual worlds into like real economies. Can you talk a little bit about the work that Pixelmatic is doing?
Yeah, so we're working on this game called Infinite Fleet. It is an MMO game, and we're doing two innovative things leveraging crypto technology. So one is we're raising money with a security token. So this is a token that is issued in the Liquid network, and it's on the Blockstream AMP platform. So AMP is a management platform to control the tokens in the Liquid network and add a layer of permissions onto them, so that you can have things like securities. So, we have transfer restrictions, we have dividend payouts, all sorts of things that allow basically the recreation of a new financial system on top of Bitcoin-based technology. So we're raising money with this EXO token, and basically the game players can effectively be investors. So if you're going to make a decision to invest years of your life, most MMO players play for, 2 years, if not more. Some games like EVE Online have been around for, I think, 18 years now. So
Hmm.
like, these are long-lived games.
Yeah.
And if you're going to make that commitment, you can also decide to invest and own a piece of equity. And this token will pay out 20% of the profits, not only from Infinite Fleet, but subsequent games that are published by the publisher Exordium. So that's a very new paradigm. We haven't seen many games try this yet, and much less in a tokenized format. So I think we're one of the forerunners of that. The other part is we have the INF token, which is a crypto asset. It's a token in the Liquid network, but unlike the XO security token, this is a pure utility, and it cannot be bought. We're not selling this token, so it's not an ICO or anything like this. This
Mm.
is just replacing the game currency. If you take World of Warcraft as an example, you're replacing World of Warcraft gold with a crypto asset.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
our goal for that is to have a more open economy where players can freely use this game currency. They can take it out of the game. They can use it for other purposes. Like you could buy someone a coffee potentially with this token
Okay.
down the road. And you can also have peer-to-peer trade of your assets in the game. So as we're a sci-fi game, we have spaceships, and these ships are all NFTs. And we can talk about that later. I think NFTs are a very hot topic now.
Mhm.
But we made the ships NFTs, and we actually pondered that decision for a long time. We weren't sure if we were going to go that route and make them NFTs, but in the end, we decided we needed to, because the NFTs and the crypto asset for the game currency both live on the Liquid blockchain. And if both things are on the same blockchain, players can perform what we call atomic swaps. These are trades that are trustless. There's zero counterparty risk. So if you want to buy my ship and you have the INF token, then we can construct a transaction that only executes if both of us sign off on the agreed terms. So you're reducing the amount of complexity and need for trust and risk for players. In the past, if you're playing an MMO game like World of Warcraft and you wanted to trade with a gold farmer, buy gold from a gold farmer, you got to send them money first, and they may not pay you. Right? It could be a
Mm.
scam. So this is a way to kind of understand that the players are going to develop secondary economies and embrace that and give them a more open platform to enjoy and to augment their game experience. And in a way, what we're doing is kind of a precursor to Ready Player One. You can play the game, invest your time in the game, level up a ship, and you could trade that ship for this crypto asset from another player.
Mhm. Right, exactly. And I kind of want to like ask you, if we think about this in the most extreme way. So right now, the INF token can be used to buy spaceships and like maybe other assets in the game. I mean, what are sort of the creative capabilities of players? Can they sort of create things or provide services within the game that they can receive INF token payments for?
Mhm. So I'm still working with the design team. We have
Hmm.
an excellent chief creative. His name is Jason Lee. He joined us recently from Relic Entertainment. He was the lead designer of Age of Empires 4, and I've worked with
Mm.
him for a long time in the game industry. And we're working on ways that space stations in the game, which will be NFTs as well, will allow owners of those stations to kind of have their own micro economy. So
Yeah.
they can provide a subset of services to players in the game, ship repair, refueling, and such. And that could potentially be a passive income earning vehicle for those
Mm.
station owners.
Right, right, exactly. And so like, when we think about where this could be, potentially in 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years from now, like, both within the specific game and sort of more generally, like where do you see, the development of these kinds of like virtual economies headed?
I think that the trend will be to empower the players.
Okay.
Um, it's like the reason why Bitcoin is so dominant is because it's the freest money, and the freest money will win. The more
So
restrictions,
sorry to interrupt. What do you mean by the freest money?
the it's the most permissionless money. So
Okay.
you can have custody of the asset yourself. If you think of gold, people don't keep gold in their own possession. It's you have it in your bank vault, or you have a promissory
Mm,
note that represents a holding of gold somewhere else. But with Bitcoin, you actually have it in your own custody, and it's permissionless. I can send it to you across borders,
mm,
and it's unstoppable money, effectively. Um, Fiat currencies, there's a lot of restrictions. If you go to the bank and you try to make a withdrawal over a few $1,000s, they'll start asking questions like,
mm.
why do you want your own money? It's kind of a weird dynamic that we find ourselves in these days.
Yeah.
But I think the same thinking will apply to the game industry and for digital assets for games. So right now, if you play Fortnite and you buy their V-Bucks currency, it's not portable and you're locked in. If you don't spend all of your V-Bucks, then it's gone. So you have this kind of problem where you play games, you buy currencies from the games, and you have these residuals that are locked up. So our thinking is we want to just open it all up. First of all, like,
Mhm.
you can freely move it. You can do what you want with it. You can trade peer to peer with other players, and just make it a more welcoming and open experience.
Hmm. Hmm. I really love the concept of, you know, like, me, Rachel, being a business owner, maybe in the quote unquote real world, and then also being a business owner, like in a virtual world, and sort of the line between those two different, I don't know, existences, like being blurred somehow, so that they're both sort of part of the same economic reality. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, lots of games have pioneered this in the past. So you
Yeah.
have Second Life.
Oh, yes, yes, of
Yeah,
course.
people have their own little boutiques in Second Life, and then
Hmm.
you have Eve Online. I think they're one of the pioneers to have this currency model where you can load up your currency into your ship and move it around and such. But I think having this as a crypto asset in a transportable, portable format that is directly easily linked with Bitcoin technology
Hmm.
is a game changer. So there's a lot of tech that Blockstream is building. So
Mm.
Liquid Network is a sidechain, but we also work on the Lightning Network, the Lightning protocol. And that's effectively a lightweight solution for micropayments. So
Hmm.
with Bitcoin, like there's a lot of complaints about the cost of on-chain transactions. And on-chain transactions are naturally going to be expensive as time progresses, just because block space is scarce and you're able to move like billions of dollars in a single transaction for $3. That's
Hmm.
unheard of for, say, moving gold. It'll cost you tens, if not hundreds of $1 millions to move massive amounts of gold around the world to store. But with Bitcoin, you can do those $1 billion transactions for $1. But it does trickle down and make smaller transactions like buying coffee or buying a game item very cumbersome, right? You don't want to pay $10 to buy a $10 game item. But
Hmm.
with Lightning, you can do these little microtransactions that are instantaneous and almost free. But the interesting thing is the Liquid network and with Lightning, you can spin up a Lightning network on top of a Liquid asset. So this is the evolution of the technology. Like right now, you have this portable game currency INF, but down the road, you could have systems where you're getting INF as a micropayment, so a small fraction of it for performing small tasks in the game,
Hmm.
or for interacting with other players or using it in other novel ways.
Okay, right. So then I also have to ask, sort of like, you know, in terms of getting paid for doing small tasks in the game in INF, do those payments come from sort of like a central fund, or like, or is that where the security token funding comes in?
No, so there's a very clear firewall between the two parts. The fundraising
Okay.
is fundraising, and
Mm.
then the INF crypto asset is it's just a game token. We're setting a limit on it. So similar to
Mm.
Bitcoin, it has a cap of 21 million. We're setting a
Oh.
cap on the INF token. So
Mhm.
there's a finite amount, and players just earn that over time by
Okay.
participating in social events. And when I mean you could pay people, I mean you could pay other players, because our marketplace is based on that INF token. But you
Hmm.
could pay other players to do something for you using the
Hmm.
game currency.
I
So
see.
that's the general idea, that you could turn those tasks into micro payments with a Lightning network on top of that liquid asset.
That is so cool. Okay, so I'm gonna jump around a little bit here. So you talked briefly about NFTs earlier, and as you said, this is a very hot topic at the moment. So sort of, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to this, but let's, start sort of from the gaming angle. NFTs are obviously have big use cases in games for, in this case that we've been talking about, for spaceships. And other games, they can be used for art and different services and collectibles and all these kinds of things. So do you think that NFTs in gaming sort of have more of a potential future than NFTs in perhaps art or, other industries?
Yeah, I think for the art industry, it's an interesting tool
Hmm.
for artists to establish closer relationships with their supporters or
Okay.
fans, right? They can sell something directly to a purveyor of art. They can fractionalize their artwork so that you could buy a small piece of your favorite artist's work. But I think the real big frontier for NFTs is the game industry. And
Okay.
I think it's going to be more disruptive startups like Pixelmatic and like games such as Infinite Fleet that push it forward, because
Mm,
our team has that deep understanding of all the Bitcoin and sidechain related technology. So we're very comfortable building systems around this technology. But
mhm.
bigger incumbents like, I don't know, EA or Activision, they're not going to touch that. And also, they're very much entrenched in their existing business models where, why would they give up revenue? Why would they let players have a secondary economy when they can just keep selling them stuff that is, not portable and locked into their ecosystem? So
Right.
I think, NFTs give players a much broader range of reach. They can trade items more freely, and you can have those peer-to-peer economies. But the key thing here is the technology should enable new use cases. So I think
Mhm,
if you just make an item in an NFT and there's no way for players to trade it freely, that
mhm.
there's no point, right? It's just like a collectible, and it doesn't matter if there was or was not an NFT. So that's why I think games that enable player-to-player trade, online games, MMO games, they're the perfect venue for applying this technology.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I'm picturing like, a sword, a virtual sword or something that's an NFT that you can literally, pass down to your children or even your grandchildren, you know, as these
Yeah.
markets like continue to develop over time. But yeah, so do you think that's possible? Like, something that could last potentially that long?
Potentially. I think what you're alluding to is, generational game items, like game
Hmm.
items that can exceed the lifespan of a single game. And
Yes.
there are platforms out there that want to do this, but again, the challenge is they're approaching it from, the top, right? They're coming to game companies or publishers and saying, we have a platform, put your items onto our platform and let people trade between different games. But that's very difficult because you're trying to break their existing business model. So that's
Hmm.
why for Infinite Fleet, we're building a game first. We've assembled a AAA dev team of top caliber talent that have worked on things like Mass Effect, Age of Empires, Company of Heroes, Dawn of War, and all these top rated games, because we think the most important step is to build that highly attractive game that people want to play and draw them in, and then bootstrap that ecosystem organically. So as the game publisher, the company Exordium, the issuer of the security token, can publish another game. We can grab another MMO from another developer, and in doing so, we can say, well, we want you to use these systems that we've built, and we want you to introduce this game currency INF, and we want you to have your items as NFTs so they can trade on uh, this global platform for crypto game assets. And that's how I think you'll see it come about, because the
Hmm.
other way, asking other people and trying to beg them to allow you to bring their items into the digital realm is much more difficult.
Right, right, exactly. So I wonder then, like, if it's possible that we can see NFTs in gaming sort of, yeah, as you said, have these sort of generational lifespans that move in between games. Do you see something like that happening, in the art world, for example, or, with any of the other creative fields that NFTs are being used in at the moment?
Yeah, with art, I think, I mean, there's not much utility to it, because
Right.
people aren't actively, well, they might actively trade artwork. It's just not been a thing in the past.
Hmm.
Typically, if you buy artwork, you're buying the prestige of owning that artwork. It's a very pricey piece of art, and you want to display it, and you want to exhibit your ownership of that artwork and show, I bought this and it's very expensive. Therefore, I myself am very prestigious because of that. So I don't see like the higher priced artwork being traded very frequently.
Hmm.
Um, but lesser known artists, they might have more turnover of their assets, or you might have limited edition assets, sort of like prints. So I've bought some real artwork in the past, not NFTs, but these were like prints of the original. And I think I
Hmm.
have the first couple of this piece of artwork of Dr. Adam Back, the CEO of Blockstream. I think we have numbers 1, 2, and 3 of the prints, but
Okay.
it's the same principle. Like you could have 100 NFTs of a particular artwork, and because they're not as big ticket, people may end up trading those, or they may have a more liquid market. So yeah, to answer your question, I think these things could develop, but I think the bigger opportunity here and the bigger driver for change is for games.
Yeah. So when are we going to see these two worlds meet? I want to buy a NFT from people and then hang it on my wall in my Second Life home. Is that something that could happen in the future?
It's definitely possible. Who knows?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
everything's constantly evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And fast, so fast. So I want to talk a little bit more about the Lightning Network, which is also something that we've touched on. So as you said, Blockstream has played a really important role in developing the Lightning Network and sort of contributing to that as a piece of technology. So Bitcoin over the past year and a half, let's say, has really sort of been gathering momentum as a store of value, hedge against inflation. Corporations are adding it to their balance sheets, et cetera, et cetera. And I think maybe an argument could be made that as that's continuing to happen, then Bitcoin is moving away from, you know, being digital cash or something that could be used as digital cash. But with something like the Lightning Network, do you think that Bitcoin could be sort of restored as a digital cash or not? And is that important to the future of the Bitcoin
Mhm.
network?
So I think there has been this narrative, like Bitcoin is not cash, but
Mm,
a lot of people pushing that narrative fail to understand that Bitcoin is very much like cash. Cash
mm,
is bearer. So it depends on what scale you're looking at it. If you think of cash as like a piece of paper and you take that to the coffee shop to buy coffee, yes, that is cash too. But if you wanted to scale that up and use cash to, let's say, buy a car, you may need a suitcase, right?
mm-hmm.
Or let's say you wanted to buy a building, a piece of commercial property for a few $100 million, and you wanted to pay in cash. At that level, your cash would require several armored trucks to transport, right?
Right, right, right.
So Bitcoin is cash. Like cash
Yeah.
is a bearer asset, and the problem is people have been grown so accustomed to thinking of cash as pocket money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is cash is cumbersome. If you want to purchase anything of substantial value or size, it becomes very unwieldy. And Bitcoin fulfilled that in its very, very early days because nobody was using it.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, there's no transactions. If there's no transactions in the network, then there's no market, right? With financial markets, if no one's buying or using it, then it's going to be very cheap to use.
Mm,
So as Bitcoin has grown into this world reserve currency, of course, the fees to move Bitcoin have increased because to move Bitcoin, you can't really pay with dollars. The analogy here I like to use is if you wanted to ship a gold bar from New York to London, and you could only pay FedEx with a piece of that gold bar, then as that gold bar gets more valuable, the cost to ship the gold bar is also more expensive too,
right. Mm-hmm.
because that the cost to send it is also the thing in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why like Bitcoin is a settlement network from design, because it is 10-minute block times, and you need to wait for your transaction to be confirmed in a block. So it was never fast. But the Lightning Network and also the Liquid Network, these are layer 2 networks that enable you to move Bitcoin quickly and with varying degrees of property. So a liquid transaction, there is still a blockchain. So there are still limitations. But what we're seeing is that traders are using the Liquid Network to move Bitcoin between exchanges rapidly and cheaply and confidentially. So the Liquid Network has confidential transactions whereby your transactions, asset type, and amounts are effectively encrypted. So if you see a liquid transaction, if I send you, Rachel, a liquid transaction, someone looking at the blockchain can't see if that was Bitcoin or USDT Tether, or a Canadian dollar stablecoin, or
Okay.
an INF token. So you have this new layer of confidentiality in addition to being able to move things easily. Now, the Lightning Network is a bit of a different purpose. I think the Lightning Network is more for buying things like coffee or small purchases, or even micro nano sized transactions. You could have machine to machine payments where one server is paying another server to perform an action. And I touched on that earlier. Like you could have a player paying another player these micro transactions to do small actions. But uh, I think that does make Bitcoin into the type of cash that people think of when they're thinking of cash, which is
Right.
it's free and there's no cost to it, and it's instant. So Lightning does give Bitcoin that cash property that people think of when they think of cash in their pocket.
Right. So what does that mean, in terms of the way that Bitcoin is going to be used in the future and also in terms of the value of Bitcoin in the future?
Mhm. Yeah, so there is no limitation to what you can do with Bitcoin. And I think the way to think of it is Bitcoin is just money, period. And money needs to be a store of value, a medium of exchange, and a unit of account. And it can evolve on all three of these simultaneously because it is digital. And we can build this technology out, constantly. We can constantly evolve and improve upon Bitcoin
Mhm.
by building these second layer technologies. So it is a store of value already, and it'll continue to evolve along that axis for being a store of value as institutions pile on. And it is evolving as a medium of exchange with things like the Liquid Network and the Lightning Network. It
Mhm.
is facilitating ease of movement. And in some ways, it is already a unit of account. A lot of services that are using Lightning, they denominate in Satoshis, the smallest unit of Bitcoin. There's tipping services where I can tip somebody on Twitter, like tipping me, I think is one of them.
Mhm.
But those are all denominated in sats. When people do giveaways, it's sats back. And sats is a common unit of account now for the Lightning Network. So I think Bitcoin is just money, and it will serve all the needs that money traditionally serves.
Simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about something else that's happened recently in the crypto world, which is the Coinbase public offering, which has been widely referred to as an IPO, but I guess it was actually a DPO, direct
Hmm.
public offering.
Yeah.
Um, so a lot of headlines, sort of the narrative around this public offering was that this is like crypto's coming out party, or that this is like somehow a really big moment for cryptocurrency as an industry and also cryptocurrencies as an economy. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think that this really means for crypto?
Well, I think Coinbase's direct listing is good for crypto because Coinbase is a big proponent of crypto. I think you've probably seen the joke like Brian Armstrong can't say the word Bitcoin. He just says crypto in every opportunity he has,
Okay. Yeah.
and nobody shills crypto harder than Coinbase.
Hmm.
They have educational products to educate people about different cryptocurrencies, and they pay rewards out to the people that study these crypto tokens, and they list everything, like things they list I've never even heard of ever. So
Yeah.
I
True.
see like Coinbase announcing we've listed ABCD, and I have no idea what that is.
Great.
So
Yeah.
so I think if your question is are they good for crypto, they're great for crypto. But I'm more of a Bitcoin proponent, so I don't really see them doing much for Bitcoin. They actually harm the Bitcoin market in some ways just because
Okay.
they have some technical issues with their exchange. Like when there are massive market movements, they go down. They're always the first to go down.
Mm.
There are many other players out there that have far more reliable exchange technology. Bitfinex is like a solid rock. They have liquidity. They never fail when the market moves, and a number of other exchanges too that just function. But Coinbase they always have some problem when the
Mhm.
market moves,
Mhm.
and it's really not good.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say, Coinbase also has made a number of mistakes over the years. They've uh, they've hired hacking team. I don't know
I
how that could
remember
happen.
that. Yeah, yeah, the neutrino
Yeah,
thing.
and and historically, Brian Armstrong has been a big block proponent, and he fought hard against Bitcoiners during the Bitcoin scaling wars or civil war
Mm,
or whatever you call that. So, I think Bitcoin has been good to Coinbase. They are able to do that direct listing and have this successful exit because of Bitcoin. Like they've made a
mhm,
number of mistakes throughout the past, but being the dominant player in the US for crypto and Bitcoin access has been really good to them. So I would say, Coinbase needs Bitcoin, but Bitcoin does not need Coinbase.
okay. I love it. Yeah, I mean that's such a good point. And why do you think it is that Coinbase is sort of always the first to go down when there's, whatever percentage market movement?
I think it's their trading engine, their
Mm.
exchange platform.
Yeah, okay.
Um, I don't know the details, but I just know from looking at it, they're always having issues when there are large market movements.
Mhm.
So hopefully they'll fix that now that they've
Now that they have all
IDO'd.
this money.
Yeah, now they have all this money, they can finally fix their platform.
Right, exactly. And sort of just on a general level, do you think that the public offering went sort of as was expected to go? Did it get as much attention? Did it bring in as much cash as people thought, or did it somehow not meet expectations or defy expectations?
Well, I think a lot of analysts looked at it and they expected it to go much higher. I saw really crazy numbers thrown out there.
Hmm.
I think this is about par for the course. They
Okay,
did okay for their offering.
yeah, yeah. So I want to ask you one last question before we go, which is if somebody who is just sort of entering crypto for the first time, entering this world of crypto for the first time, what would you point them towards at this particular moment?
Um, I would say look at MicroStrategy's materials. Hope.com, I think, is where
Mhm.
they've collected a lot of their Bitcoin related materials and understand the thought process that Michael Saylor took. Like he's like relatively new to Bitcoin. He wasn't around for all the past years, but he got himself up to speed very, very rapidly, and
Mhm.
he formed the perfect thesis for Bitcoin. Like he understands exactly why it is valuable, why people should hold it, and why it's needed in the world. He figured it all out very rapidly, and I think he spent a decent amount of effort putting together a collection of materials that he himself went through and found valuable to finalize his thesis and get MicroStrategy involved in Bitcoin. And um, I think another good resource is Jameson Lopp's website. I think it's lop.net, but he writes a lot of great material introducing people to Bitcoin and explaining it in very accessible ways.
Samson, before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you and the work that you do?
Sure. I'm on Twitter. My handle is Excelion, Excelllion. You can follow news about Blockstream, just at Blockstream. And if you're interested in games, then you can check out at Infinite Fleet. And we post a lot of updates on all these channels. So there's always news, there's always new technology being rolled out and new developments.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this interview. It's such a pleasure to speak with you.
Thanks, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.